So, welcome to the final video, part 404 for Algebra II, the mini crash course. This is going to be polynomial factoring, part 2. And instead of being a more structured kind of manner of teaching how to factor step by step, I believe your teacher in your lecture will definitely give you this, or most definitely if you want to check it out before you start your lecture or start class in the fall, go to Khan Academy for that. What I'm going to be trying to provide here is my outlook or how I attack these problems, not in a step-by-step fashion, but as a student who's done a decent amount of factoring in this basic trinomial form, and kind of walk you through my thinking process and my immediate goals while solving this problem in a fast and efficient manner. If you get lost while I'm explaining, don't worry. Definitely check in with Khan Academy to get a more step-by-step explanation. This is just trying to give you guys an insight into my thinking and how I, over time, stray away from the step-by-step manner in factoring and have it be more of a fluid kind of thinking process as I factor. So essentially, this is also could be, considered like your method 3 in a sense. This is going to be just tackling just general, hardcore, simple factoring, not looking at any of the patterns like difference of squares, not looking at like perfect square trinomials. You'll probably run across those or might have already run across those in the future. This is just pure factoring, pure thinking, and just a simple walkthrough of my thought process. And hopefully you find this really helpful. If you don't, definitely check out Khan Academy for that step-by-step and detailed explanation. But hopefully this is a good insight into what hopefully you'll be able to do factoring in a blink of an eye, essentially. So let's get started. Without further ado, I do understand that a big gripe of students is like, hey, the practice problem or example problem is really simple, but this is a good way to illustrate it. I can definitely get into more complex or explain more context later in the future, or go to Khan Academy for that. But let's get started on this problem for now. So my first goal when doing factoring is I realized my goal essentially is to be able to solve for this 5x, right? I want to get to this 5x, right? And how I'm going to do that is my very first number, right? The first number I'm concerned, especially if this is just a 1, because it's all very simplified. If there's a 1 in front of the x squared, the 6, right, is the number I'm concerned about, right? And I'm thinking, all right, what are the factors of 6? Like what numbers can I multiply to get 6? Okay, so what this includes, right, is, sorry, my mouse pad is not working right now. 1 second. All right, there we go. So how we can multiply to get 6? Well, first off is 1 times 6, right? That's the easiest, right? That's for every single number. And then we can go up a notch, right? 2 times 3, right? And then because this is a small number, right, the next number we get is like 3 times 2, but that's the same thing as 2 times 3. So essentially we have two options here, right? We got 1 times 6 to get to 6, our final number, and we get 2 times 3, right? And so that's my first step, right? Looking at the final number, right? What multiplies by what to get our final number. And then essentially, right, I want to combine these two numbers in order to get my middle number, which is 5x, right? And how are we going to do this, right? So if we notice, right, this is really simple. It's all positive signs. But how can I combine, right, one of these sets, right, the first set, which is 1 and 6, or the second set, 2 and 3, to get a number that looks a little something like 5? In this case, positive 5, right? And my immediate thought is like, look, 2 and 3, boom, right? You add 2 and 3 together, 2 plus 3, we get 5, right? I don't care about 1 and 6 anymore. I care about 2 and 3. Do I subtract them to get to 5? No, I add them to get to 5. So that step of logic right there is going to be reflected in my factoring. And immediately I can go x, right, plus 3 times x plus 2, right? And this works out, right? This works out beautifully. And I'll go through the quick steps, right? Multiply this out, FOIL it out, right? At the beginning of factoring, FOIL everything out to make sure you get your right answer. But, right, x times x is x squared. Then we get a plus 3x. And then we also get a plus 2x, right? Because they're all positives, right? And I already, decided that from the very beginning, 2 and 3 that multiply to get the 6. To get to that middle number 5, I'm going to add them. So that's why I have these positive numbers, right? We got that positive 3 and that positive 2 here. And then at the final end, we get positive 6, right? And then what do you know, right? We add up this 3x and 2x, and we get our final solution, right? But we're back at square one again. Full circle, x squared plus 5x plus 6. Really basic, really quick and dirty. Let's just move on. So this is a variation, right? Variation of this number. And I'll show how that logic applies here. Essentially, once again, right? Our final number. What's our final number? 6, right? How do we get to 6, right? Once again, 1 times 6, 2 times 3, right? What are we looking at? What are we interested in? We're interested in getting to that middle term, right? If I could tell you one sentence on how to do factoring is how to get that middle term. That's your only goal, how to get to that middle term. Everything else is fine. Everything else is very straightforward and simple, right? The beginning term is just multiplying at the beginning terms of your factoring, and the last term is multiplying, your end terms of the factoring. The middle term is where you do that addition, subtraction, combination stuff to get to it. In this case, right, we got 1, 6, we got 2 and 3. I'm already observing 1 and 6, right? How do I get from 1 and 6? How do I get to 7, right? That's the closest number I can get to. Boom, right? 1 plus 6 is 7, okay? And then we can instantly see that reflected, right? I'm going to do x plus 1 times x plus 6. And boom, we multiply it out, factor it out, or FOIL it out, right? We get an x squared plus 7x plus 6. And maybe you don't want, and that's it. That it's really that simple for this kind of factoring. But let's say like, hey, like I don't want to do this, 6, and then 6 is 1 times 6, and 6 can also be 2 times 3. You still think that process in, and you can already, right, with this kind of problem, I'm leaning towards 1 and 6 as my factors. Why? Because that middle term is fairly large, right? So I want to get my larger numbers in a sense, right? 2 plus 3, they're kind of the factors in the middle. They're not going to give me as large of a number. They're going to get me up to 5. It's obvious to see here, but if you get somewhat complex numbers, you can already get an inkling of where you're leaning towards, right? This middle term is already larger than my last term. I'm looking to combine terms to get to this number, right? And so I'm more in favor of the factors 1 and 6 right from the get-go, rather than 2 and 3, which are more towards the middle, going to give me a more smaller number. All right. Then moving on, let's focus on this term right here, this first one. The rest are just variations. Don't get too scared. Kind of similar to what we just did with the plus 6 over there. All right. So focusing in, right? Let's focus in onto this problem specifically, okay? And once again, right, we want to focus on this 24 over here, right? And then this 24, right, super complex, super complicated, in a sense that it has a lot of factors, right? There's a whole game based off of playing around these factors and multiplying, adding to getting to 24. That's a whole discussion for another time. But right, we got 1 times 24, right? The very basic one, first one. We got, oh my God, my typing is 1 times 24, right? What else? We get 2 times 12, right? And then we're just moving up the line, right? 3 times 8, and then 4 times 6, right? 4 different ways to combine these numbers. Really confusing, especially when that middle term can be almost anything. But in my head, I'm going to get rid of all of this. And in my head, right, I'm kind of aware of all the factors that can multiply to 24 in a sense. But this is where I'm going to start my inkling, my leaning. Where am I leaning towards, right? This middle term is very big in comparison to my last term, right? 25 is bigger than 24. Am I going to get to a number like 25 using like middle factors like 3 and 8, 4 and 6 added together, or in a sense getting to that middle term? No, the answer is no. And so because this number is very large in the middle, I'm immediately leaning towards my 1 times 24, right? This kind of combination, and how we can do this. And it plays out perfectly here, right? Where we get an x plus 1 times an x plus 24. And if you FOIL it out, I guarantee you it's going to turn into an x squared plus 25x plus 24. And then, so let's move on from this one and let's move down a notch. Same problem, same concept, different middle, right? And this middle's less than 25, more towards the center, right? So 124, not really a good option. And right from the get-go, you're thinking, I can't really combine 1 and 24 to get an 11, but what can I combine, right? 6 and 4, kind of close, right? I'm debating between 6, 4, 3, and 8. Well, once I think of 3 and 8, right, the answer becomes very clear to me, right? 3 plus 8 is 11, right? And once again, we got these positive numbers going for us, and we can write it out, right? Immediately, x plus 3, x plus 8, boom, we've got this factored out perfectly. And then let's move on really quick, right? Final one, right? I already mentioned it, right? It's kind of middle term, right? Away from that 1 and 24, away from that 2 times 12, right? And now we're kind of leaning towards that 4 and 6, right? We already just did the 3 and 8 in a sense, and it plays out, right? 4 plus 6 is 10, and we can kind of get this going where we have an x plus 6, x plus 4. Kind of a broken record at this point, but hopefully this makes sense. And essentially, right, once again, you're breaking down what can multiply to that last term, this 24 at the end, right? And how do we combine those two factors, right? 6, 4, 3, 8, 1, 24, 2, 12, into that middle term, right? And it'll start getting slightly more important when we go to this, right? And this is another variation, right, of this 24, except this time we're introducing the minus sign, negative numbers, right? Negative numbers, all it means, right, is one of these factors, right, especially with this last 24, all this means is one of the factors is going to be a negative number. So we still have, right, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, etc., but one of these, right, could be this 1 negative, is going to be negative, or this 2 is going to be negative here, or vice versa. The 24 here is going to be negative, and this 12 is going to be negative here. So all it is just switching where one of the factors has a negative sign. And with a negative sign, right, instead of instead of adding, like, we're still going to combine these factors to that middle term, but instead of adding, right, the negative number is essentially going to have these two terms subtracting. So this middle term is going to be slightly smaller, right? It's a kind of another hint, another characteristic of this kind of factoring with a minus sign. The middle term is going to be slightly smaller, right? And I'm already leaning away from 24 and 1, right? Because 24 minus 1, that's going to be like 23x, or like 1 minus 24, that's going to be negative 23x. We're looking for terms more in the middle. 3, 8, still kind of too far apart. We're getting a difference of 5 there. 6, 4, all right, 6, 4, difference of 2. Hey, look at that. My middle term's 2. And away we go, right? So, and then we have scenarios, right? We could do like x plus 6 and an x minus 4, or we could do an x minus 6 and an x plus 4, right? And right, if we multiply, right, our 6s times our 4s, we're going to get a 24. And then one of them being negative makes it that negative 24 we're looking for, okay? And then at the beginning, right, we get the x's times the x's, and that gets us our x squared that we want. Now, the middle term is the most important thing that we want to worry about here, right? So with that said, right, we're going to essentially get we got to combine them, right? And if we do a plus 6, or like a minus 6, right? Minus 6x combined with a positive 4x, we're going to get minus 2x, right? That's not what we're looking for. Essentially, what we're looking for is this, right? We're looking for the x plus 2 times x minus 4. And I kind of neglected to do this during the video, but let's multiply it out, right? We're going to get our x squared. We're going to get our plus 6x. We're going to get our minus 4x. And then we're going to get our minus 24. Combine the two middle terms. And we're going to go back. We're going to just kind of end up, I'll just sneak it in at the end. We're going to just end up with that x squared plus 2x minus 24, right? Let's focus on to this bottom. This is exactly what we just noticed, right? It's that variation where the middle term is a negative 2x, right? So what does that mean? The negative number is going to be bigger than the other number in that factor of 24, right? When we have 6 and 4, which number is going to be negative? It's going to be that 6, right? In order for us to combine the 6 and 4 to get our negative middle term, we want to have our bigger number to be negative to create that negative term in the middle. So let's play that out again, right? Essentially, we're going to get our x minus 6 and our x plus 4, right? And you can switch the x plus 4 with the x minus 6. Like one can go in front of the other. It doesn't really matter. It's associative property. And then let's multiply it out, right? We get our x squared. We get our minus 6x. We get our plus 4x. Then we get our minus 24 at the end, right? And then we simplify it, combine the two middle terms once again. And we're going to get our x squared minus 2x minus 24. And that's how we're going to deal with these kind of numbers here, especially negative numbers. And yeah, and with practice, it should make sense. If it doesn't make sense, go to Khan Academy for that step-by-step. This is the quick, efficient way I like to think after I've gotten some practice, some familiarity with these kind of problems. And then some students might come up and say like, hey, I have a problem, right? It's all fine and dandy. It's all nice and easy, right? Especially when that first term up here, this x squared, right, is essentially like there's no coefficient in front of it. And they're like, hey, what do I do if there's a coefficient? Well, same thing. You just have to combine all your factors in a sense to get to that middle term. But it's slightly more complicated, and I'll show you how, right? So let's, in a sense, right, let's copy this problem over and let's add a factor in front, right? Let's say 2, just to keep our numbers simple, right? Let's say 2. And I'm not sure if this is actually going to work out, but let's give it a shot. I think we can do it. Okay, so oh wait, I accidentally deleted this whole entire x squared. Let's add the coefficient 2 here. All right, let's give this a shot, right? So once again, same concept still applies, right? We want to find what multiplies to get to 24, right? That still applies. The only difference here is we also have to worry about at the beginning what multiplies to get 2x squared, right? We can't just do the x plus at the beginning. In a sense, we have to do something right to get the beginning. Well, typically these coefficients are a lot more simple. The factors are a lot more simple. It's going to be like a number 2 here or a number 3 here, and it's going to be relatively easy to deal with. And I'll show you guys how, right? So right from the get-go, I know what are the factors for 2. Instead of focusing on the factors for the 25 first, we focus on our beginning coefficient 2 here, right? This is what we're focusing on. Here's how we break it down, right? Already from the get-go, it's just 1 times 2. There's nothing else. Nice, simple, dirty, whatever is easier to handle, we handle that first. Okay, so right from the get-go, I can just do a 2x, and then I'll write an open parenthesis, and then an x, right? I haven't filled in the mess over here, but we can handle that later, right? Already I know 2x times x is going to get us our 2x squared. Our beginning portion is handled. Now, we have to worry about our last portion, this 24. How do we get to 24? Once again, we're already thinking 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, right? Just go up the number line, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then, so from there, right? But then we just have to worry, how do we combine to get this 2x in the middle, to get our middle term? Everything, once again, in factoring, the only thing you need to focus on is how you add everything together to get to your middle term in the end. All right, the middle term is always going to be the annoying piece of information that you have to make sure that you get down and put, right? How do we do that, right? 2x, kind of a small number, not a very big number. Once again, I'm leaning away from that 1 and 24. I don't think it's going to be a 1 times 24 kind of combination. Very hard to get to 2, even with that 2x number in front, right? So I'm thinking more middle, right? More middle terms. And this is kind of a unique kind of situation. Um, but essentially, right, we can mess with the numbers, with the factors 3 and 8. We can also mess with the numbers 4 and 6, and I'll show you why really quick. Let's start with 4 and 6 though, right? So right from the get-go, how can we combine 4 and 6 to get that 2x? We know 6, right, minus 4, right, is going to get us that 2x. But we have that we have this 2x to deal with, this coefficient 2 to deal with. This 2, right, is essentially going to have to multiply against a factor that goes into the 24. So this 2 is going to have to multiply with our 4, or it's going to have to multiply it with our 6, right? And to do this, to get the eventual terms added up together to get a 2, I'm going to choose, right? I could do 2 times 6, which is 12, combine it with my 4. That's not going to get that middle term I'm looking for. I'm going to choose to do 2 times 4, which will get us to 8. And then that's starting to look like I can get a 2 when I combine it with 6, right? And that 8, right, that 2 times 4 to reach that 8 is going to be a big number. And that middle term is positive. So we want the big number to be positive, right? So I'm going to opt, right? So I want to combine 2 with 4. How am I going to do that? Am I going to put it here, like with the 2? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it on the opposite side so it can actually multiply together. And so I'm going to do a plus 4 here, and I'm going to choose a minus 6 here. And then you can very quickly see how it's going to work out, right? Let's FOIL it up. 2x times x, right? We're going to get a 2x squared. Then we get minus 6 times x, which is minus 6x. Then we can do the 2x times our plus 4, right? That's going to get plus 8x. And then multiply the minus 6 times 4 at the end. We get our minus 24. Let's move down a bit, and we simplify. We combine the middle terms, right? And what do we get? 2x squared plus 2x minus 24, right? And then that's essentially going to give us our answer. We're back at square one. So this 2x minus 6 times x plus 4 is, in fact, going to give us the answer we're looking for. And that's, in a nutshell, really quick, really challenging kind of way to deal with that coefficient at the front. Challenging problem, but once you get that concept of, hey, I'm looking to see all these different factors, right? Before, right, we were just dealing with factors that went up to 24, but we're introducing a third one, right? This 2, right? Another set, right? But we went from 2 factors with like another 2, right? The 2 times 1 and this 4 times 6 here. So now we're combining 4, but the concept is still the same, where we're going to get these middle 2 terms, and we want to make these middle 2 terms get to our ultimate middle term up here. A little combination of minus sign and plus sign, but hopefully that was helpful, or at least insightful, to see how I think and approach these problems relatively quickly. And if it doesn't make sense, once again, check Khan Academy. This whole crash course is coming to a close. But Khan Academy will be your best resource to get a comprehensive overview of Algebra 2, especially if that's what you're looking for, to give you a head start in that school year. Highly recommend. Honestly, just watch through all the videos with the concepts that you do already know, skip through them, scan it, just make sure you didn't miss anything. Watch it at 2 times speed, do whatever, helps or gets your gears turning. And I hope you guys have a good one. Peace.